Okay, so we start.
Mm-hmm.
So like Victoria said, we're recording. If you have a problem with that, let us know and we'll stop. But the idea is we can put them out on YouTube and have this collection of presentations. I'm Jack Church, and I work with the Zurich board. And I don't know when this kind of started, I guess 3 months ago, right? Something like that. I hadn't read a whole lot about the whole coronavirus and was under the impression it was, oh, it won't be that bad, and wasn't paying a lot of attention. And I got to reading. And through Facebook, there's some people back where I'm from in the States, and one person in particular was started making masks. And I was like, well, where did you get that mask and why? And then started reading about that. And it's amazing. There are at least hundreds of groups in the US that are making masks because there simply aren't enough masks for nursing homes, police, EMTs, a whole range of people. And so there's actually a lot of work in the US going on that. So I, again, started reading a bit and then started playing around with how to make them and why are masks important, et cetera. So this presentation, there's about 15 minutes on a little bit of the science of why a mask is important and who it protects. And then we'll talk about actually, how do you choose what material to make it out of, and how do you make one? So if I can, there we go. So if you have any questions, please send them to Victoria in the chat. And then she'll kind of keep them for a little bit and send them one to me, and we'll go from there. And this is, right now, this is actually a really good question because, everything's opening up and obviously it's not a problem anymore. So why even bother talking about it? And this is why. We're actually, right now, this was yesterday, we had 15 new cases that tested positive. And if you back up, then that's more than we had in February. And yes, certain measures have been put in place and we're supposed to maintain distance. So there's an awareness that we did not have in February. But historically, there will be another. Matter of fact, the guys on television said we'll either have one big wave in October-ish timeframe, or we'll have several smaller waves, depending on how we react to what's going on. So this is basically the summation of what we're going to talk about. The picture is off of The Onion, which is a satirical website out of the US, and they're worried about the viruses sneaking up from the back and getting you. So what's the purpose? Which is really an important question because it's changed my design and other people's designs on what we've been doing. So the surgical mask is good from 1 to like 3 microns. I mean, as far as it will filter about 95% of that. And I'll get to the depending on a minute. And then 95 will go down to 0.3 microns. And there's N95, and if you've worn a mask, they get rather hot around the face. And if you have an exhaust port, like right here, it's much, much more comfortable. And this is the same thing, except rather than having a whole mask that filters, you just have a small filter. And they work great. Just as a reference point, micron is 1/1000th of a millimeter, which is 1/1000th of a meter. The coronavirus, and this is pretty interesting. The coronavirus is really small. Oxygen is much smaller because, again, I'm from the US, like Amanda, and people are saying, well, I'm not going to wear a mask because I can't get enough oxygen. The CO2 is going to build up and it's causing, and this is not an actual problem. What happens is the corona typically, and this is any virus, it rides on the moisture that we either sneeze, cough, or when we're talking. And those particles are much bigger. Those are in the, even as small as 2, but in the, say, 2 to 10 micron range. So typically masks protect us, whether it's from dust or pollen, or we're doing woodworking or whatever it is. In this case, it actually protects us from, or protects other people from our exhaust, right? So they talk about we can have it for 10 days and not even know. And even then, a lot of people have the virus, it becomes prevalent. but they're asymptomatic. They have no symptoms, even though they're contagious. The problem with these two guys is they have exhaust ports. So they are not protecting other people at all. They protect us, but not other people. This is a picture with lasers. Here's a guy, he's got glasses on to protect his eyes, his nose, mouth, and he sneezed. And sneezes are in the order of 40 microns. So they're fairly large particles that we're putting out. This is a cough, which is smaller. It's in the 16 to 5. And there's a time, so this is a modeling, and there's a time issue that after about 1 minute, all the larger particles settle out. They're just heavy enough, they're just gonna fall down to the floor. But in the order of 20 minutes, you still have these really small 2 micron particles that just kind of float in the air. And the easy answer to that is you open a couple windows. In this particular model, there's no ventilation. You got a dozen people in a closed room. And they said it was about the size of a classroom. And this is, I refer to it as breath fog. If you're just talking, I don't have a better term for it, but if you're just talking, it's what's coming out of your mouth. Here's one guy, whoops, hang on. There. Here's one guy, these are all the particles, and you can just kind of see the profile. There's the nose of the other guy on the other side. So they're about a meter, meter and a half apart. And you kind of have this cloud that just kind of sits there. And it's as if the particles are almost buoyant in the air. Again, you open up a window and they just go right away. So the Swiss in particular are going to have to start going at the little draft inside is okay. I have not read this paper. I just was looking for some stuff, and the Guardian had commented on it that basically, and the other part that I don't know is what is their definition of a non-fitted mask? I'm assuming that's a surgical mask or an N95. A fitted one has a rubber gasket. I'm assuming, I don't know that. And that's, you know, but masks work and we're not using them. And to give you an idea of, I talk about history and science. The historical part is for the last 20 years, a lot of Asian countries, or at least areas in Asia, have been wearing masks a lot. Pollution's bad. They went through SARS, they went through MERS, and it's a problem. And so if you look at, all right, so you have Switzerland is 8.6 million, Hong Kong is 7.5. They had 4 that died. That's all. We had a few more than that. All of them wore masks. You know, population density, we don't have an excuse. You could say, well, it's in a city, like if you look at New York City, where they had quite a few, but they're higher, more populated, and they just weren't paying attention. And the data on the deaths here is from Monday of this week. The infected rate, this is just as a side note, the infected rate is difficult to determine because if you're not, depending on how much you're testing the population, it gives you an idea of just, you know, how much your, what's your actual rate. So a lot of places actually are doing, they're ignoring the infected rate and looking directly at the number of dead versus the general population. So the goal, this was done, I'm trying to remember, I think he's in China, but he started doing studies of just how effective are masks and looking at various things. And basically, if you're up into the 80 to 90% range, the virus has nowhere to go. You've protected enough people and there's not enough places for the virus to go. You can have down into 30 to 40% and you don't get much benefit. I would say Switzerland might be down in the 1 to 2%. That's small. This kind of sums that up, or not graphically, but as a graphic. And one of the real problems is, see if I can word this right. 50 to 80% of the people that come down with the virus catch it from someone who's asymptomatic. They catch it from someone who they don't even know they had the virus to transmit it. So you have the, but I'm not sick, why do I need a mask? Transmitting it. So our mask doesn't do that much for us. It helps, it's better than nothing. But it's really when you start combining them and have more people that it just has nowhere to go. This is the ways not to wear a mask. And you'll see this if you watch the news, right? You'll see a lot of people, it's under the nose. This is the first one I've seen where it's above the chin, which would probably slip into the mouth. This is a really common too. Watch the news, watch people out when they have masks on, and you'll see, I see medical people. There was a nurse on attending a patient and she had the mask down. I don't remember if it was below her chin, but it was definitely under her nose. And I have not seen this in person, but if you do a search online, you'll see people with plastic bottles over their head. These are from the United States. This was actually shot by a cashier. The woman came up and he was like, "What are you doing there?" "Oh, we have to wear a mask, but it's too difficult to breathe, so I cut it out." And right. And so I figured that's what you should wear when you go to a restaurant, right? Because then you have a mask on, but it's easier to eat that way. So these are just right out. Fit is actually important. And so the one here is a gap. One of the advantages of some of the cloth masks is they extend much further back. So you simply have a larger surface area to help seal a little bit better. And this would be great. All she's got to do, this is a small metal band, and all she's got to do is pinch that around her nose a bit. Yeah, and it seals much better. If nothing else, if you wear a mask, whether you go out and buy one or whether you decide to make one of your own, and you either don't put the metal piece in or you don't form it around your nose, your glasses fog up in no time. So that's fine. This one, however, has the problem of it's an exhaust port, that picture. So if you have, that's a lot of the technical kind of stuff there. So if you have any questions, send them to Victoria. We'll pause just like 30 seconds to a minute here and then move on. Are there any questions? 9? Okay, so it was kind of wondering, so what are we saying here in Switzerland? And these are just a couple of question and answers right off their website. I just pulled them off today. Should everyone wear a mask? No. Healthy people don't need to wear a mask. And of course, the problem is you don't know that you're healthy, but they do admit it can prevent someone who's already infected from infecting others. If you're infected, why are you outside of your house or apartment? What type of mask? Surgical, industrial produced masks from fabric, that's fine, but they are to protect other people. And how do I know? They provide no protection, which I really want to find out a little more than that because it's counter to everything that I've read. This is also an issue, right? So anytime you have a situation where, I don't want to call it an emergency, but where there's a major problem, you get lots of people making fake product. And this was on, I don't even know where I read it, but somebody had ordered, not directly from a manufacturer, but from a secondary person. They had a couple 100,000 masks and they got them and opened them up and they were all fake. You know, so to say that the manufacturer is responsible for sending you a quality mask isn't who the manufacturer, depending on who you get it from, you have no way of knowing. So why reusable? Again, this is for non-professional. This is not for doctors. It's not for people in the lab. This is us. We're going to walk downtown or go to the shop to get groceries, whatever. There's 5 million people working in Switzerland. So if you take the train and you go to work, and even if you said, okay, our workplace is far enough apart that it's easy for us to take the masks off. If it's a disposable mask, you need to throw it away. Then you need to put on a new one when you come home. So whether my assumption is high or not, I said, okay, 1.5 masks per day. You're at 7.5 million disposable masks per day, which if we're in WWF and we're worried about the environment, this makes no sense. So that's why And the goal, and I have no idea when we go over how to make them, how long they'll last. I would hope a year, maybe a little longer, depends on if you're wearing it every day or 2-3 days a week, or, but the goal is to reduce throwing things away. So we'll talk about actually making it. And of course, the first question was, out of what? I'm not going to go over that. This is from the same website. It's a much, much shorter list of materials, and you have, so, and this is all comparison to the 1 micron. Remember, most of the, if the virus is on a particle or moisture, it's in the 2 to 5 micron. So the surgical mask collects, prevents, filters 97%, and then it just works its way down. And one thing you can do really great if you have 2 layers of, like a kitchen towel, but you can't breathe. This is a totally different study. This is, so the study, moment. Here. So the study here was done pretty much on the material by itself. And this was done, the company Smart Air Filters, right? This was done as actually pre-corona. This was, I want to say 2013, something like that. What would homemade masks help? And so they went through and they have a lot of the same numbers. Surgical mask is 96. Pillowcase, it's anti-microbe or an allergy pillow, is 65% of the, and the pressure drops are not too bad. The pressure as far as breathing it. Vacuum cleaner bags work great, but you can't breathe. And so that's kind of the problem. And this is, again, all with regards to simply a 1 micron. So the same study, they said, okay, wear a mask. And they had a specific way to wear a mask, and they had or make a mask, and they had 20 people that made them. They're all out of t-shirts. They're all unworn t-shirts, so they're brand new. I don't know how thick they are, but they had a particular way to make them. And then everybody put them on and they fitted them themselves, and they were asked to cough. And what they found is that, okay, even with a surgical mask, some will come out, a little bit more and a lot. So it's not as good, but it's much better than nothing. So I chose, the stores weren't open when I was making these, so I had some old pillowcases. We had plenty of pillowcases, so I chose actually a pillowcase next to my face and some work pants that I had that were had torn at the knees, but the bottoms were still pretty good and durable. And I want a mask to like be protective and protect me. And yeah, and my attitude has changed a little bit since I started. So that's how I picked that. And then this is from the website BB Healthcare. There was a woman that she was working at a nursing home, and basically they had no masks at all. And it was like, how, she was a nurse, how can I come up with something that will protect me so that this isn't a problem? This is her pattern on the left. I made one like that, and I didn't care for it too much, so I just simply made it a little bit sharper. I cut it down a little bit more so it goes a little bit lower on the cheek, not a lot, maybe 0.5 centimeter. A really important point on this is the pattern does not include seam allowance. So this is where you would sew. So if you're going to cut this, you can print it. You can go to that website and you can print out that one page which has the pattern. And if you're going to cut that, you want to add an extra 0.5 centimeter or centimeter so that you can sew it to the size that you want. And I'm calling them a chin dart and a nose dart because you actually cut along there, and that's what makes it work for the chin and the nose. This is the same thing. This is a size medium. The grid on here is 0.5 centimeter. I pinned it to a pillowcase and then marked it, and then later I cut it out. But this is the fold, right? So the idea is, and so this was designed by someone who works in an area she was going to have more contact. And she wanted as little of a seam as possible in front of her face that she was breathing through. I haven't made a decision on the next version that I make, whether I will add a seam to simply add more material, or do something else. And then this is going to be the outside of it. So it's exactly the same thing. I'm just going to cut one from the inside and one for the outside. So basically I have this slide about every 3 slides from now on. So if you want, you can unmute yourselves. And if you have a question when I'm describing what's going on, then just ask. Okay. So this is, we took the chin dart and the nose dart, we cut those and we just sewed them. But see, there's no seam in between here. That's where the fold was. So that's the inside. And then we need a nose piece pocket. And the basic material is 5 by 15, pinned, sewed. I did 1 centimeter foldovers and then about a 1/2 centimeter or so on the. And so so this is a top view. Underneath is the other one, and it's pinned together and then sewn. And the thing to remember about this, yep, hang on once. Let me finish this one, and then I'll answer Mi's question. The thing to remember is you're sewing it inside out. So you have 2 pieces of fabric, and you're sewing it in a way that we're going to turn it inside out. So what you're looking at is that you would never see this again once we're done. Okay, there's 2 questions. Could you comment on the clear face masks? There's an issue with wearing masks on identity, and then there comes a mask in the mouth, transparent. Oh, okay. I don't know anything about them really. So the question was the clear face mask, and I'm assuming, where's me? Would you unmute yourself?
Yes. So basically, I understand that there was quite a lot of discussions in Europe regarding wearing masks and identity.
Yep.
So now there's this kind of masks. I don't know if you can see my.
Yep.
Yes, basically it's just like the facial area. It's become transparent. I guess it's just a plastic piece, and it's sealed with yeah. And do you think how the effect of this kind of mask, and some media like BBC even claim this might be the new norm in the future?
So I'll give you 2 kind of perspectives. One is, or maybe even 3. So if I can do this, one is from a policing standpoint, right? This is a nightmare. I've got everybody, and I can't ID anybody because everybody's covered from here up. So there's a real issue around that, particularly less in Switzerland than other places, but there's an issue. The second is, so I took the mask and I put a solid piece of plastic where I can't breathe through it at all. So that means you have, and that may, if you make it correctly, it could be better. And we'll remind me of your question later, like in about 10 minutes, when I'm talking about the finished mask. Because this mask is fairly close to the face. And when you inhale, you will see and feel the mask move. If I put plastic across here, I potentially could have it out far enough that I get a larger area that actually filters. But that by itself won't do it. I have to have some additional plastic that goes around the side that creates this kind of bow to force it out. So there's a real design issue. And the third one is absolutely, when you're talking to someone, particularly for Auslanders, when we're talking to someone and our German's not so good, they can't see me struggle. They can't see my expression, that I'm smiling while I'm saying this wrong expression. And that would prevent a lot of that. I mean, that facial communication is huge. So I would not be surprised to start seeing a lot of masks like that. Making one yourself could be a real challenge. Can you show us again, please? Which? All of it? Oh.
It's okay. I was just asking me to show us hers, and I'm just showing you one that I have.
Right.
So you can see me completely.
Yep, no, I can see it. So it's
different.
a plastic kind of shield that
Just
comes
a shield
down. Right.
Goes round.
Yep.
And it's just from here to here.
And the only thing I don't know that any studies have been done on that at all.
Okay, because
It may be.
I have to do a lot of sports, and so I can't use my official doctor's thing because I'd die.
Yep.
So
It builds lung capacity.
yeah, right. So I use this when I'm out doing my sports.
Yeah.
Then I use the official doctors whenever I have to really kind of,
Yep.
if I go shopping or something like that.
Yeah. Because
the Swiss aren't using any masks anymore. It's, it's a free for all, and yeah. So okay, just thought I'd help you.
No. That's
anywhere. You can make them up yourself.
Yeah.
It's not hard to do.
Right. And I have no idea, if you were to compare the two, obviously nothing's going to get through. So that's excellent. I have no idea. I just don't know.
No, I don't either. I was hoping you'd.
No.
So you'd be the genius. Okay.
99.
Thank you.
All right, sure. So if you have questions, like I said, we're putting this together. Actually, don't even worry about sending them to Victoria. Just ask. Just unmute and ask. So the nose pocket, we had sewn that one. We're going to put it, but you put it kind of back to back right now. And then you flip it up and you pin it in place. And you're only worried about pinning this end and here, because I need a way to get the metal piece to go in for the nose right there. And then we just top stitched it. So this is, again, is open. This is the part that will go against my face. This is the part that comes the outside world sees. And this is, that's where we're going next. So now I have everything pinned together. And actually I should have probably done this, but there's the outside surface, the pocket, and the inside surface. And then I just sewed those all together. So if we take the end of that and open it, this is what we see. And so we have this is, again, the surface that the world will see. This is the surface against our face. And just like you're going to pull a sock inside out or a long sleeve t-shirt or something, you just pull that inside out and you end up with something like that.
I have a question.
Sure.
Do you think it would be like if I didn't have a sewing machine, if I tried to do it by hand, would that make
Absolutely.
it like, okay, so it would be fine.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I have the comment, it might be even at the end, where if you don't have a sewing machine, so everything we've done so far is simply to hold the whole thing in place.
Mm-hmm.
So I could even have not used the machine for up to now. And well,
maybe not.
I have not been successful with fabric glues.
Okay.
But you could easily do a basting stitch. I mean, they could be a centimeter long. All you're trying to do is hold the thing together at this point.
Okay.
This stitch right here, the top stitch that holds the pocket to the outside, that one you would need to sew a little more smaller stitches.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then I just took the ends and folded the ends under. And then I have it's a 5mm nylon webbing that I stole off of my camping equipment because I can't find it in Switzerland. And so that's going to be the earpieces to hold it on. And so I have the top one and the bottom one, and I put the seam's going to go right here. I'm picking that one because this one's good. And I pinned them in place, and that way the seam's going to hold it. And of course, it's just my personality. I want this thing to be strong, and it's a mask that is going over your face. It doesn't have to be, you're not going to hang from it. It doesn't have to be that strong. Before you sew it though, I really recommend you take, and I'll show you how to make this in a minute. I really recommend you take whatever metal piece you're going to use for your nose and put it in there first before you do a top stitch along here, because if you misjudged and you're a little wide, then you have to rip it out to figure out how to resize it. And then you top stitch the whole thing. And so there's the stitch that holds in the webbing. There's one down here. It goes all the way around. It doesn't,
We have a question about
Sure.
alternative alternatives for the elastic bands or
Yep.
for the bands. Can you use elastic bands or like
Yep.
rubber bands or something?
I have a couple alternatives at the end.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
Yeah. Because this was, again, so there's a woman that lives where I used to live in Delaware, and she's closing on her 1200th mask. So she's made them for the police, for nursing homes, for the Navajo,
Wow.
but she's done about 1200 masks. So we actually go back and forth on design, and she has a really good design for this that I'll show you that I really like. And particularly if you don't have a sewing machine, it may work much better.
Awesome.
The cord locks, well, right. And she was looking at other things because the cord locks are $1 a piece. And so even in the States, if it's 50 cents a piece or 50 Rappen, when you're making 1,000 of these, this gets to be pretty pricey. And so she wanted another approach. So you can get just an elastic that's 5 millimeters and do that. I'll show her your approach. I'll show you her. Yeah, I didn't like the elastic. It felt fine behind the ear. It was actually much more comfortable than the nylon webbing. It's the same size, but it's a little thinner. But it felt flimsy. And then if it tears out or doesn't last very long, with a couple months, then I've got to undo the seam and then I got to put a new one in, and there's a better way. Here, this is the better way. So if you, instead of sewing it in, she just did a buttonhole. And then someone said, well, how about do grommets? And that's even better because I don't need to have a machine to do a buttonhole. I just punch in a grommet, and I'm done. And so, okay, I'll get them in just a second. There's, so this is a 5 millimeter elastic, and just take a button. And when you run the elastic through one of the buttonholes and then down through the other one, there's enough friction, it won't go anywhere. And the button can't go through the grommet. And so you can adjust this so that you get the amount of tension that you want, enough tension to hold it there, but not so much to hurt. And this, from an engineering standpoint, this is elegant. Because the part of the mask that you want to last for a year or so is a really durable material. And the part that has a problem is easily repairable. I wish everything were built like this. Okay, hang on, there's a couple questions here. Ooh, could you use elastic bands around the ears? Yes. What kind of metal part? What do you mean by the metal part?
The nose part that you put in.
Okay, I'll get to that. Could you use elastic bands around your ear? Oh, it's the same question, right? Okay. So this is the nose piece, and I'll show you, this is the second version of what I did, and then I'll show you the first version, which is easier. So I made about 10, right? So I had about 8 that have these nose pieces because I shipped them off to the kids in the States. And my wife and I both have 2. So this is 12 centimeters long, and the nose pocket was, the fabric was 15. So when you fold it all in, it just fits. If you want it longer, make the nose pocket longer. If you want it shorter, I wouldn't make it too much shorter really, because you want it to go over the nose and fix this area. And so you can see the marks right here. So I picked the middle point and I went about 3/4 of a centimeter and then about 2 centimeters down. So this band is what I'm folding here, and that's the part that goes around the nose. And then I went down about 2 centimeters from there, and then I folded it out. So this is the part that goes around the cheek. And depending on what tool you use to cut this is rather sharp and pointy. And so you just use a file to kind of file the end off in the edges. So it's really not too bad. So that was my second version. So this is the first version. It was just a metal wire, like a coat hanger. It happens to have been coated. The important part is this. Okay, so get a pair of pliers, and that's about, I don't remember how long that is. 3/4 of a centimeter, something like that. It's not very big, but it keeps the end of the wire from digging into your face. You know, so if you fold that correctly, it's easier to, it's actually much easier to mold around your nose, but you want to make sure that you do that. The other thing that I would do is I would make the pocket smaller, or just do your top stitch like you would normally do, and then come down and do a second stitch, or do another one here, because otherwise I have this wire that's floating in a pocket that's, you know, 3/4 to a centimeter wide, and it doesn't work quite as well. So that's how I've made masks, and I'm looking at them. This is basically what to do afterwards. It's just kind of a procedure. Take it off and wash it, or take it off and put it in a plastic bag. If you know I'm not going to wear it for 4 hours, I don't have a way to wash it, and I have a second mask that I can put on when I go back home or wherever I'm going. Take the nose piece out when you wash it. The fabric is, I mean, depending on what you use, is fairly durable, but you've got a piece of metal in there that has a good way of damaging it. Hang it up to dry. If you really, some people are really, you know, I want to kill whatever is there. And that's fine. It really is. The water, the virus dies at 80 C. So if you dump it in boil, sticking in the microwave. So the problem is it doesn't have any mass. The mask doesn't have any mass. And so if I put it in the microwave, I'm concerned about what would happen to the microwave. If I do it with either the nose piece in or with the cord locks, there's metal. So I would just dunk it in boiling water. Some people, there's a couple of things I've read about people have done. Someone they set their oven to 80 degrees C and they put it in. Some people have used like a dehydrator. They use it for dehydrating food. It's got a heating coil in it, and they'll put it there. Personally, I just wash it with a lot of water. You know, but those are some options that you can do. And I think that's it. That's it. Hang on. Do you recommend wearing a mask? How long can you wear your self-made mask before washing it? Oh, so when you put it on, and this doesn't matter whether it's a cloth mask or you get a surgical mask or whatever you're doing, view it as being contaminated. So if it's a cloth mask, when I take it off, think of it as being contaminated. So I need to wash it or store it somewhere that can't do anything. It's overkill, but let's move forward 6 months and say there's a second wave and it's a real problem. People do need to wear masks. You've created this habit of what to do. But I would, right, you've worn it, wash it. And my guess, I'm totally guessing here, that's one of the reasons that the bag says that homemade masks are not, there's a higher risk of problems wearing a homemade mask than not. And my guess is there's like a self-contamination that people will wear it for a week and never wash it. So even if it weren't contaminated with coronavirus, it's a moist environment that may or may not dry out well, and I just wash it and dry it. Always when outside the house. I only wear the mask when I go to the store. If I were going downtown, so like when we start to meet again in Zurich, I will wear it to walk from the train station. I will wear it in a train. It's because I can't reliably keep 2 meters from someone in downtown Zurich. And so, when was it, 2 weeks ago? I don't know, I woke up, I had a sore throat. I get sore throats. I wouldn't have thought anything about it normally. I would go for 4 days before I go to a doctor. I went for 4 days with pneumonia before going to the doctor. That's just, anyway, that's just me. So, but I went and they got me tested, and then the answer was, you and your family need to not leave the house until we get the test results. Well, my wife's a school teacher, so she can't she's out of, she can't go to work the next day. And the principal of the school said, I had 3 teachers call in with exactly the same thing. It didn't mean their partner tested or someone in their family tested positive, but had a concern. I was negative, it was fine. But I lost my train of thought. Oh, so we don't know. That's, I guess the other thing is we don't know that we're not. I mean, right now the odds are really, really small that anybody, particularly in northern Switzerland, is contagious. But can we see a photo of the finished mask? Try. There. This is the first one without a nose piece. This is one, so these are the bottom pants that I had, and this one's really tough to breathe through. But it has a pocket. You can't see it very well. Or it has a pocket for the nose piece, which actually that pocket's better than this one because it's a little bit snugger and tight and works better. But where do we need to go there? Other questions? That's basically it.
I have a question. If, for
Sure.
example, I work in a shop and I have 8-hour shift, do I need 8 masks and change them like every hour, or can I
Nope.
wear just one mask 8 hours in a row?
The longest I've worn one is about 6.
Okay.
And I had a doctor's appointment, and then I had someplace else, and I just combined a couple of things, and I never took the mask off.
Okay.
Right. No, I mean, and people do. They'll wear a mask for 8 hours a day but then wash it afterwards. So to give you an example, the one, it was the second one that did the testing, where they talked about the pressure change and stuff. They basically said, as you continue, like after, and I don't remember the time, but after a couple hours, the actual effectiveness of the mask went up because it's cotton and the cotton swells with the moisture, and it actually worked better. So, other questions? Oop, hang on, there's 2 more. You want to see it again? Do you want to see the finished mask again? No, okay. That's it. So you can end of this if you want, Victoria.
Okay, well, maybe we went to, oh yeah, sorry. Go on, Victoria. I thought you were going to just leave.
No, I just stopped recording.